If I were to ask you the question, what's for dinner tonight? Would you know? Or maybe what's for dinner tomorrow? Would you have an answer? 5 years ago, I can tell you, if you would have asked me that question, I would have no idea. And it brought me so much stress to get home from work and try to figure out what was for dinner last minute. My name is Angie. Welcome to my channel, Quiet Confident Woman. My passion is truly building confidence in women, especially introverted women, and supporting them in building a life and a business around what brings them joy. If you love what you hear today, make sure to subscribe. Okay, let me paint you a picture. I worked all day, came home at night, and either my son or my husband would say, "What are we having for dinner tonight?" I don't know if you can relate, but I had nothing planned. And I am not any type of cook. So I cannot open the refrigerator and look in the pantry and be like, "Oh, I have beef and I have these seasonings and I have these vegetables and I can mix them all up and make this." That is not me. I cannot do that. Now, my husband, on the other hand, is very good about being able to look at what is available and create something. However, he was in a season of life where he was cooking every day at work and did not want to cook. Once he got home, he was burnt out from creating meals every single time he was at work. And I was like, okay, we're just gonna figure this out. So on occasion when I would get home, I would say, okay, well, we have chicken and we have these ingredients, like what can we make? And sometimes he would be able to think of something, and other times he's like, well, if we would have mushrooms, we could do this, or if we had this ingredient, we could make this. And then somebody would end up running to the store after we were exhausted all day and have to get something, which delayed dinner even more. I was done with doing that on a regular basis. Now, this wasn't like just a week that this had happened. This was several months, maybe a year or so. I'm a person of gradual change. So it was nothing drastic that happened right away. Now, I can tell you that as I was sitting there thinking, okay, maybe I should like figure out a meal for tomorrow night right away and maybe the next day, grab some groceries. So I had a couple days planned. So I came home from work and people were like, "What are we having for dinner?" And I was like, "We are having sloppy Joe." And they're like, "Yay, we love sloppy Joe." I'm like, "That is good because that's what we're having for dinner." And the next night I knew what we were having for dinner. And then the third night was left over. So that made it super easy. But then I was right back to where I started. And I did not like meal planning. I did not like it at all. I still do not love meal planning at all. And so I'm like, okay, now we gotta maybe stretch this out. Let's plan for a week. And gradually it just built until now I am at a point where I meal plan for a month at a time. But I can tell you, it took me a long time to get there. Like, I would probably say about a year. So go easy on yourself when you are trying to adjust something in your schedule, because it is going to take time, especially if you want to stick with it. Now, we can do drastic things overnight for a day or two, right? We can even do it for a couple of weeks, maybe even a couple of months. But if you want those habits to last, it needs to be gradual and it needs to be small steps that you can keep consistently on a regular basis. So let me tell you a little bit about how I meal plan. And I encourage you, anything that you hear from me or anyone else, take out the pieces that you feel would work in your life and go ahead and adjust them as you're trying them and playing with them and adjust it to fit you and your family. I'll give you some examples of how I did that at the end. So, meal planning. This is what I do. I take a blank calendar. It's, just a calendar with the boxes on it. And I pop in the days of the week and I pop in the dates of the month. And then what I do is I look at our schedule, our family schedule, and I go ahead and I pop in the things that will, one, interfere with meal prepping, or two, interfere with the time that we're going to eat. So this is not a schedule of everything that's happening that day for the entire month. That's not this type of schedule. This is only the things that are going to interfere with prepping or eating the meal. So, for example, my son has drum lessons. So if he would have drum lessons at 6 o'clock one night, which is about the time that we typically would eat, that would interfere with the meal time that we're eating. Now, it could also interfere with the prepping time as well, because I would prep that prior to eating dinner, right? But I would be driving him to drum lessons and waiting for him and then driving home. So what I know is we need to be either done eating by 5:30, so the meal has to be made and we're done eating by 5:30, or we will have to eat about 7. And if we eat about 7, I need to make sure that it's a meal that can be ready in 15 minutes, or it's gonna be later than 7 o'clock. So anything like that, pop in your schedule. Now, I'll have meetings during the week, maybe from like 9 to 10, I'll have a meeting one day. That's not gonna interfere with meal prepping or eating, so I don't put that on this schedule. All right, so that's step 1. Step 2 is now plopping in the meals that you're going to have each and every day. I utilize an app called Trello, Trello. And in that app, I have what's called a board of a list of all of the foods, or the meals, I should say, all of the meals that we enjoy. So I will open up Trello, I will look at all of those meals, and I'll be like, okay, we need a fast meal this night. You know what? Hamburgers, I think we have enough time to do hamburgers on the grill, make some fries, or have chips, and we'll be good to go. So I might pop that in a day that we need a fast meal. Now, if we need something even faster, I will make sure that that day is a leftover day, or I will make sure that there's something that I made a double batch of earlier that's in the freezer. I often do that with meatballs. Meatballs will take me a while to prep, but I do a triple batch and then I will freeze them. So next month, if we need a fast meal, I know I have meatballs in the freezer that I can pull out and it will be ready to go with some mashed potatoes and we are all set. So I will go ahead and plop in all of the meals that we are going to have. That's the second step. The third step is to go ahead and put all of those meals into Trello. So on that same page in Trello, I have week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, and then the list of the meals on the side. So I will go ahead and take, if we're having Monday, we're having hamburgers, I'll put that hamburgers in Monday. If Tuesday we're having chicken stir fry, I'll put that on Tuesday in Trello for chicken stir fry for week 1. And I will continue throughout that whole thing. Now you're probably thinking, okay, Angie, you have it on this paper calendar. Why do you need to put it in Trello? Well, Trello allows me to do a couple of different things. The main reason that I put it in Trello is because in that list of foods that I have, when I open up one of those meals, so say hamburgers, I open up that meal and it will tell me what I need for the ingredients for that meal. There's a checklist that you can create and I will have hamburger buns, ketchup, pickles, onions, whatever else we're gonna have with that meal. And I can add to it if I want to, but I will know my shopping list based off of this checklist. So I will copy a card. So they're called cards. So that meal is called a card. I will copy that card in the meals that I have listed of ideas and put it into week 1, the appropriate time slot or day slot, whatever you want to call it. And then I will do that for the entire month. That is step 3. Step 4 is to create my shopping list. Now, I do not meal plan for breakfast or lunches. If your family is different, you might need to do that as well. But my family, we don't. However, we need supplies for breakfast and lunches, right? So I will add things to the grocery list that we will need for that. I use Google a lot of times. So if I see that we're running low on bread and I am going to be going grocery shopping, I will say, hey, Google, add whatever to the grocery list, and it will do that. And then I will also look at different staples that we need throughout the month. Maybe we need Ziploc bags, maybe we need saran wrap, maybe we need, whatever it is, I will add to that grocery list. And then I will pop into my meals on that Trello board. I will open up each meal and look to see what we need for ingredients and make sure we have them. So let's take hamburgers, for example. We need hamburger buns. If we don't have any or have enough for this meal, I will add it to my grocery list and then check off hamburger buns in Trello. If we need ketchup and I look in the refrigerator and we have plenty of ketchup, I will check it off on Trello. If we need onions and we don't have enough in the house, I will put it on the grocery list and then I will check it off in Trello. And I will do that for the entire month to create my grocery list, then go grocery shopping, and we're set. Okay, now I told you there were some tweaks that I found along the way that I needed to do. So as you put these systems in place, you may be thinking, okay, Angie, it seems like too many steps. You can create the whole thing that you're doing with less steps. First of all, if you figure out a way to make this faster, I am all ears. Please send a message below because we would love to know how to create systems as fast as possible. So if that happens, please let me know. And you may find, okay, I don't want to use paper. I want to use my tablet, which is what I actually use. It's just a form of paper on my tablet. The different things that you have heard here, adjust for your family. So these are the things that I adjusted. One, I found that when we had eaten our meals for a month, we had like a burger, like a beef-based meal for like 10 days in a row. And I was like, holy buckets, I'm done with beef. So I was like, how can I prevent that from happening again? Because I look at the meals and I pop them in based on the time that I have to prepare them. I don't look necessarily at what we're doing, or sometimes not even if it's repeated again. So I have to be cautious about that now. And so how I can catch those things earlier is I highlight the meals that are beef-based in red, and I highlight the chicken-based meals in yellow. Everything else gets highlighted in orange. So if it's leftovers, if it's pork chops, if it's pizza, if it's salmon, any of those things are all orange. And the reason I do that is because I know the orange meals will be just generally mixed up for our family. It won't be the same thing over and over again. We are not a family that eats tons of fish. Really, we have to like forcefully eat fish. So I know that I'm not going to have an abundance of that. My concern was having an abundance of beef or having abundance of chicken meals. And so I am really cautious about where I pop those things in. And that's where the highlighting system really helped. Also, when I highlight every meal that we're having, it prevents me from getting to Trello and popping all the meals into Trello and being like, oh, I didn't have anything on this Thursday for a meal, because otherwise it's all black and white and all I'm seeing is, okay, we have a whole bunch of schedule things on this day and I overlooked that I didn't put a meal on that day. So as long as every day has something highlighted, I know that we have a meal that's situated for that day. Whether it's leftovers, out to eat, whatever it is, there's a meal on that day. The other thing I noticed was it was taking me a really long time to meal plan for a month, and I would procrastinate it till the very last minute of the very last day. So at like 10 o'clock at night, I was figuring out what we are going to do for a meal for the entire month because I was grocery shopping the next day. And typically I can't adjust the grocery shopping time once I have it in my schedule. It's just too much of a time block for me to be able to randomly adjust that. So I was like, okay, how can I figure this out? Now, if you think about this, if it takes half an hour to meal plan for a week, that would be figuring out your schedule, figuring out what meals you're gonna have each day, and creating a grocery list. If it takes you half an hour, then really by default, it will take you probably about 2 hours. Maybe you can get away with an hour and a half of meal planning for the entire month. So I was like, how do I adjust this? Because remember, I do not love meal planning. It is low on my list of things I love, like very low. So if I don't enjoy doing something, I tend to procrastinate it till the last minute. I hope some of you could relate, but I did not want to be up until midnight figuring out a meal plan when my brain was not functioning to think about what to have for meals at that time anyways. So I decided to break it down into smaller parts because my other option would be, let's decrease the amount of time and go back to maybe every other week for meal planning or every week for meal planning. But I dislike meal planning so much that I didn't want to do it more frequently. And I wanted to make sure that I would still find some sort of non-stress. I was going to say joy, but that's a little too far. So non-stress of figuring out this plan. So what I did is I broke it into several parts. I will go ahead and pop my schedule in at one moment in time. And then maybe later that day or the next day, I'll figure out what we're having for meals. And then the next day I'll pop it into Trello. And the next day I'll create a grocery list. So now I give myself like 3-4 days in order to do this whole meal planning thing instead of being like, okay, on my schedule today, I have 2 hours for meal planning, which is what time I need, but I don't like doing it, so it doesn't get done all in 2 hours. All right, that's my tip on that because I love the results of meal planning way more than throwing away the process of doing it. So I don't want to change that because meal planning is something that gives me less stress every single day of the month, except for the day that I'm meal planning. And I just have to think to myself, okay, Angie, I have this task 12 times out of the year, 12 times out of 365. I feel like I just need to suck it up. So oftentimes, I also give myself a pep talk. Okay. So the third thing that I found is to go ahead and add the recipe in Trello. I was coming to the day of creating the meal that I had planned for, and I will oftentimes kind of look, like as I'm looking at Pinterest or as I'm looking on Facebook, some meals may come up and I'd be like, ooh, that sounds really good. I feel like we would really enjoy that meal. And then I'll save it or, add it on my Pinterest board or whatever. And then as I'm creating meal plans, I will go back and look at those things. But oftentimes when I make the meal, I'm like, oh, shoot, I have the ingredients, but where's the recipe? And I'm searching for this recipe for all of these ingredients that I have and I can't find it. So in that Trello board, you have the ability not only to do checklists, but you can add attachments. So I will add the link if it's on Pinterest, I will add the link. Or if it's, maybe it's on Facebook or something, I will just go ahead and take a screenshot and add a copy of that picture in Trello, so then I have easy access to it. So no more searching for 20 minutes to find where the actual recipe is. And some of them I couldn't even find. So I had to solve that problem. So when we got to that day, we could actually eat whatever it is that I thought about eating. So, all right, you figure out what works best for you and your family. I hope some of these tips will support you in creating meals for your family and taking away the stress from the question, what's for dinner?